Can Baker Mayfield will his team to victory in this classic AFC North showdown? That and more today on the Run the Sims podcast. I'm your host, Adam Wilde. We've got Cleveland heading to Baltimore. The total is 47, with Baltimore favored by 3.5. That seems a little low. I mean, they're getting the 3 points for being home. So are we saying it was basically a pick 'em between these two teams? I don't know. Some people think that Baltimore's kind of fraudulent. Some of their games, most of their games have been incredibly close. They had that one they shouldn't have gotten in with the Colts, and then this would be a tie for the winner of the AFC North. So maybe it is this close. We'll take a look. So the first thing we're going to go through is injuries. On the Cleveland side of the ball, we've got Donovan Peoples-Jones that we need to pay attention to. He was limited in practice Friday. He didn't play last week. It has started to look promising. We're projecting him in here on Run the Sims. So something to keep an eye on. He's going to be a big, big part of our lineups, our builds here in a minute. Anthony Schwartz is going to be out. On Baltimore side of the ball, you've got Patrick Ricard. He was limited. That's a big part of the running game. Marquise Brown, he is another wide receiver that is questionable. We have projected in with a whopping 27% market share. So that's going to be a big, big, big deal if he ends up not going, and something you're going to want to adjust for. Just a tip, I guess, if you are using Run the Sims and you're trying to prepare your lineups early or just stay ahead of the game, you could just go ahead and go here and project Marquise Brown out and then evenly distribute his passing work to, Bateman, Watkins, Duvernay, whoever, and however you see fit. And you'll see how your lineups will change if Brown is out, so that you're not behind the 8 ball when it's an hour before game time and Brown is announced out. And you're like, okay, well, what do I do now? Well, you could have already known what to do if you already distributed his market share as a backup plan. Miles Boykin, he's been ruled out. And then Nick Boyle is going to be questionable. Interestingly enough, with Nick Boyle, so Mark Andrews has always been like a 48% snap share kind of guy, and he's just gotten a ton of passing work on his 48%. But this year, he's been 60 to 70% of the snaps all year. And when Nick Boyle came back last week, you thought he might go back to that 48% role, but Mark Andrews still played like 78% of the snaps last week. So with or without Nick Boyle, who I believe is the best blocking tight end in the league, Mark Andrews is still going to get a massive uh, snap share. Let's head over here to the optimal results. Okay, so no projected ownership yet. We have Lamar Jackson appearing in 55.1% in the flex, 30% at captain. So this is the same thing that we had with Josh Allen on Thursday. So if you listen to that show, same thing. It basically turns into a 5-man slate because you see Lamar Jackson's appearing at 85% of the lineups. He's probably going to be about 95% owned. I believe that on my tournaments on Thursday, Josh Allen was 97% rostered. So basically, what you're going to have to decide is, so one, how much captain do you play for Lamar Jackson? So one way to get an advantage is to play Lamar Jackson at captain. Okay, now you get 1.5 times, but you've narrowed your player field for not, excuse me, for not getting duplicated in your Lamar Jackson lineups because you played him at captain. So another thing you're probably going to have to do is look at your roster construction as a whole. And that means you're probably going to have to play more Cleveland Brown players than you're going to like just to get contrarian. Otherwise, you're going to fall on the same lineups that so many other people are playing because the entire slate's going to come down to how do you build around Lamar Jackson. So whenever you have a player that you basically have to play in Lamar Jackson, you have to figure out how can I build uniquely and still get close to a median projection that's optimal. Well, that's probably going to be, unfortunately, Brown's 4x2s. Or since that's going to be kind of tough, it might be a week to go 3x3s and just try to make sure you're getting unique with those 3x3s. So, like, if we have Donovan Peoples-Jones projected similarly to Jarvis Landry, but with less salary and less ownership, is playing a lot more Donovan Peoples-Jones, and even throwing Donovan Peoples-Jones in the captain is going to be helpful to creating unique builds. So let's go on to Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is, let's check his projection. So Baker Mayfield's projected 16.1 to Lamar's 25.5. So you see why this slate's going to be so difficult to get unique, because if you want to go 4x2s with the Browns, you still have to play Lamar. You can't give up 10 points median projection and still get there with a reasonable lineup. So where's your salary go? Basically, you're going to have to stack Lamar with like a cheap punt play for Baltimore and hope you get there if you're going to play both quarterbacks. Another thing that I've been trying to dabble with is playing for Browns without Baker Mayfield. And that's kind of worked out. I've played like Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Donovan Peoples-Jones at captain, and like David Njoku or Harrison Bryant with Lamar Jackson and like Devonta Freeman. And that's a lineup that you could play that's going to be incredibly unique. But it's like, how am I playing for Browns without Baker? So it is a tough slate. Let's head back to optimal results. Marquise Brown currently, if he's in, is in 36% of the flex, 11.6% at captain. Mark Andrews, 34% of the flex, 9.2% at captain. Devonta Freeman, 33.8% in the flex, 6% in captain. If Brown plays and he's gathering a lot of ownership, I really like Devonta Freeman in the captain. And I like stacking him with Lamar, just hoping to get a passing touchdown for Devonta Freeman. Jarvis Landry, 27% in the flex, 7.7% in the captain. I talked about it for a moment. So you see Jarvis is in 27% of the lineups. Donovan Peoples-Jones is in 24% of the lineups. But I think that should be even higher for Donovan Peoples-Jones and lower for Jarvis because their median projection is so close based on point per dollar, and their snap share has been similar. Jarvis has had a higher target share, but I mean, for the price difference, you're saving 2,800. I'd rather go with Donovan Peoples-Jones and save on ownership and salary and still get a similar median projection with a similar upside because Jarvis Landry's A dot has been like 5.8, I think, recently. So he's been basically just an extension of the run game, and they're already running at a massive clip. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is really taking over for what Odell Beckham should have been, which is the downfield, you know, chain mover type player. So I'll take the discount on ownership and salary and play more Donovan Peoples-Jones over Jarvis Landry. Nick Chubb is appearing in 24.7% of the lineups. That's just because so many lineups are going to be predicated around 4x2 and 5x1s leaning towards Baltimore. So it's just hard to get Nick Chubb in those lineups because if you're stacking Lamar Jackson, then you're playing Mark Andrews or Marquise Brown, and then you just don't have enough money for Nick Chubb. So one thing I've been dabbling with is Nick Chubb at captain and then just fitting whoever you can in. Of course, Lamar Jackson. So you're going to have like Nick Chubb at captain with Kareem Hunt and then 4 Ravens, including Lamar Jackson. That's one way that you can get unique playing both running backs from Cleveland and nobody else and just hope that it's a heavy running day for them. Kareem Hunt is coming back from IR. He's in 22.3% of the lineups. He's a little expensive considering they technically could put him on a snap count, but I have not heard anything or seen anything that would indicate that they were going to do that. It seems like he's fully healthy. Browns appearing in 22% of the lineups. Austin Hooper, 19% of the lineup. So Austin Hooper's an interesting one where he's playing basically the exact same snap share as David Njoku recently, but he's $1,200 more. He's going to be more owned. He's going to be one of the favorite Cleveland Brown run backs at 5,200. So David Njoku is in no man's land at 4,000 because Harrison Bryant down here is going to be in 12% of lineups and he's only 1,000. So he's going to be a favorite punt play. So essentially no one's going to play David Njoku, who's, ultra athletic, can score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. He's $4,000, which is around like, for reference, where Jared Cook usually is type deal. And his ownership is going to be minuscule because he just falls right in the middle of 2, decent plays. But why are we playing Austin Hooper at 5,200 when he's getting a 64% snap share and David Njoku's getting a 63% snap share for $1,200 less and essentially no ownership? So I'll be jamming in more Njoku than Austin Hooper. I might play no Austin Hooper, but I will have to use Harrison Bryant for the salary relief, of course. But you can play 2 tight ends. You can play Njoku and Bryant and still be looking okay and save yourself a ton of salary. Rashad Bateman's one to watch if Marquise Brown is out. He's a little expensive, but he is appearing in 15.3% in the flex. Latavius Murray, 13.1% in the flex. So in the past, lineups have won with Nick Chubb at captain, and Kareem Hunt in the flex. I believe the same can go for Devonta Freeman. I believe Devonta Freeman and the captain and Latavius Murray in the flex can be successful on this slate, and that's the type of thing that you're going to have to do if you want to win with a Ravens 4x2 or a Ravens 5x1. You're going to have to get unique, because if you just put Lamar Jackson and captain with a bunch of pass catchers, or you put Andrews or Marquise Brown and captain with Lamar Jackson, you're going to get duplicated by so many people. So if you can get Devonta Freeman and the captain and just get lucky on a receiving touchdown, you're going to be ahead of the field there. And then you've got Latavius Murray. If he punches in a touchdown, he's only 3.6K. Latavius Murray still had 12 touches. Well, he had 10 carries and 2 targets last week as Devonta Freeman had his highest workload. So Devonta Freeman's being used as a bona fide like workhorse, which is insane to say in 2021. So last week, Devonta Freeman had his highest workload of the year, I believe 20 touches total, and Latavius Murray still managed 10 carries and 2 receptions. So if you think J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, I know that seems like centuries ago, but they're essentially, after all the turmoil and all the trying to figure out their backfield, they've basically gone full circle and they're back to where they wanted to be in week 1. It just pretend that Devonta Freeman's being used as J.K. Dobbins and Latavius Murray is being used as Gus Edwards, and they seem to have figured it out. Harrison Bryant, I mentioned, is only 1K, so he's great salary relief. Sammy Watkins isn't really getting enough work. So when Marquise Brown was out, Sammy Watkins had like 4% more snaps than did Rashad Bateman. So Rashad Bateman had about 70% of the snaps, and Sammy Watkins had about 74. With Marquise Brown back, I believe that Sammy Watkins is going to be the one to take the back seat. Rashad Bateman has just been playing too well to take any reps off. So Sammy Watkins is the one that's going to have to take a step back when Marquise Brown returns. Devin Duvernay always goes underlooked, but the Baltimore Ravens like him a lot more than we know that they like them. I mean, they consider him as a legitimate offensive weapon. He gets 1 to 2 manufactured touches a game. A lot of the times they're inside the 10-yard line. So Devin Duvernay is always a good, well, he's not a punt anymore. I mean, he's 4,800, but he's always a good like one-off where you're getting him at like 15, 20, 25% ownership, and they like to use him near the goal line. They like to use him in the red zone. He had a spectacular touchdown catch not long ago, so he's still being utilized as a receiver as well, but he's also getting those jet sweeps. He's also getting those push passes. So Devin Duvernay is always a what the heck, throw him in kind of play, and you can be greatly rewarded by going with Devin Duvernay at low ownership. You've got your kickers down here being at about 10%. And then I guess the last person that I'll have to talk to is about is Jamarcus Bradley is going to take a huge step up if Donovan Peoples-Jones misses this game. So Jamarcus Bradley played like 70% of the snaps last time Peoples-Jones missed. And then Rashad Higgins just isn't getting the targets. I mean, he's in the game, but he just has not been getting consistent targets of late. So let's check out a few lineups. You have a Lamar Jackson lineup. So if you look here, a frequency of 8, this means that play whoever you want. Usually our highest frequency, we're looking at like 13, even 20. Even the slate that I'm playing today is going to be 36, I believe, for the highest frequency for the Tampa Bay and Colts game. And we're getting a frequency of 8. So, I mean, you see 5, 4. It shows that lineups are all over the place. So get unique on this slate. Get unique as you possibly can. The first lineup is Lamar Jackson and captain, Josh Oliver, Mark Andrews, Devonta Freeman, Marquise Brown, and then running it back with just Donovan Peoples-Jones. I don't mind that at all if you have to play Lamar Jackson. Josh Oliver is a fine punt play in terms of $200 players. Sure. Let's get to a Mark Andrews at captain. Mark Andrews at captain, Lamar Jackson, Devonta Freeman, Marquise Brown, Baltimore Ravens, Cleveland Browns. I'm not going to play double defense, but that is our third highest frequency lineup. Jarvis Landry at captain, Cleveland Browns, Demetric Felton, Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown, Baker Mayfield. So you see how tough lineups get if you play both quarterbacks. It's really difficult to get both quarterbacks in there and keep it viable. You've got Lamar Jackson, Devonta Freeman, Demetric Felton, Baker Mayfield, Mark Andrews, and Donovan Peoples-Jones. So I could go on and on, but basically just don't be afraid to feel gross about your lineups on this slate. Something weird is going to end up taking down $1 million. Just stick to your typical, let's go 4x2, 5x1. If you can fit in Cleveland Brown lineups that you feel okay about that are leaning 4x2, or I don't think that you could get away with a Cleveland Browns onslaught, but if you could go 4x2 Cleveland Browns and feel okay about it, definitely do that because you're going to get a huge leg up on the field. And if you're playing Lamar Jackson, maybe you pair Lamar Jackson with Devonta Freeman and Latavius Murray, or even one of my favorites to go with is assuming that Marquise Brown is going to be in. Start your lineups with Lamar Jackson, Devonta Freeman, Latavius Murray, Mark Andrews, and then just cycle through Cleveland players with that build. That's another way that you're going to go in your smaller fields that might end up working out for you. Last thing we're going to do is hit on our projections. Lamar Jackson, 25.5, which is like 10 points higher than the next highest projection, which is Marquise Brown, 17.2. Baker Mayfield, 16.1. Nick Chubb, 14.3. Mark Andrews, 14. Jarvis Landry, 12. Devonta Freeman, 11.8. Kareem Hunt, 9. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 8. And you see that's a huge price disparity. So Donovan Peoples-Jones is looking like a very solid play. Austin Hooper, 7.4. Rashad Bateman, 7.4. Your kickers are around 7. Your defenses are around 7. David Njoku, 6. That's another. So pay attention to that. I mean, Austin Hooper, 7.4. David Njoku for 1,200 less has got a median projection of 6. So, like, why are you playing Austin Hooper at higher price and higher ownership? Sure, he can catch a touchdown, but that doesn't mean it was the right thing to do. Devin Duvernay at 4,800 is 5.3. Latavius Murray at 3,600 is 4.9. So there's another one. Like, Devin Duvernay and Latavius Murray are both really good plays because they're going to be low owned and they're both got decent touchdown equity, but Latavius Murray's cheaper and probably even less owned. And then you've got like D'Ernest Johnson is going to be pretty much 0% owned, and he's going to get a few touches, I'm sure. And then you've got Harrison Bryant at 1,000. He's going to be probably the most popular punt play on the slate, and he is projected 2.9. So that's going to do it for our show today. Thank you so much for coming out, and good luck on your Sunday night showdown. Peace.